Hey everybody, it's Karen Bentley here, and I teach stopping, the totally undervalued, underrated, underutilized life skill called stopping. Stopping is not doing something. It's being still, even though the impulse, the urge to do something presents itself. Stopping is the secret of knowing yourself as who you are. So for example, if you stop yourself from not having adultery, then you're faithful. You know yourself as a faithful person. If you stop yourself from not murdering another human being, then you know yourself as a nonviolent person. So it's what you stop yourself from that you learn to know who you are, and you learn it in spades. What you don't do is more definitive than what you do. So for example, if you threw every ingredient into a recipe, the recipe would be undefinable. You wouldn't know what it is. You have to leave certain things out to know that you're having spaghetti sauce, or you have to leave certain things out to know that you're having a taco. What you leave out defines you, and it defines you very quickly. What you leave out is also the quickest, the most efficient, and the fastest way to accumulate personal power. In the days when wise people roamed in our world, when there were magicians who are magi, when there were wizards, and when there were warriors who were really men and women of knowledge, these people used the practice of stopping to teach how to become a powerful being. And now stopping is relegated to recovery. It is recognized as a powerful life practice. It is underutilized. It is undervalued. And I am bringing it back for you because you must know stopping. You must know stopping to make your life work, to be able to manifest anything, to have abundance, to make life easier, to make life more enjoyable. You must know stopping. And I'm going to be sharing my personal stopping story with you in just a moment. But any behavior can be used to learn stopping. So if you have a dependency, you are actually fortunate because you have extra ambition. You have extra inspiration to stop it. But it doesn't have to be a dependency. It can be anything. It can be any habit. It could be sleeping till 10. Stop yourself from doing that. It could be using the F word in every sentence. Stop yourself from doing that. It could be eating like a pig after dinner. You can stop yourself from doing that. You can stop anything. You can pick anything. It doesn't have to be a recovery problem, but it can be. And that's why this could be an alternative approach to recovery if you want it to be. The deal is that stopping is a way to break free from the matrix. Stopping is a way to ascend. Stopping is to rise up over the limitations of everyday life and experience yourself on a different level if you want to. When I hear that, we're in a new age and ascension is upon us, and I just think it's a lot of bullshit. You have to act. It's not something that's going to happen to you passively. You have to act. And one of the ways that you have to act is by learning stopping. If you have not bothered to learn stopping, you're bullshitting yourself. You're fooling yourself. It's a spoof. You must learn this skill to do any of that spiritual stuff if it's important to you. And you must learn it if it's not important to you. You must learn it to make your life work better. And you must learn it to like yourself. So it just has endless benefits for you. And stopping is actually just a moment of doing nothing. It is not responding. So we all are born with an inner robot, the inner ego robot, whatever you want to call it, who will do things for us It will do everything for us if you want it to. You actually do not have to go through life having a conscious moment. You can let the ego robot do what you want. Don't want to wash the dishes? Let the ego robot do it. Don't want to have sex with your spouse or partner? Let the ego robot do it. Don't want to drive consciously? Let the ego robot do it. The ego robot will do everything for you. You don't have to consciously engage if you don't want to. So stopping forces the ego robot to turn off, at least momentarily. And that, my friend, is why it's an act of power. And that is what we're after. Power, awareness, consciousness, acting consciously, thinking consciously, walking our talk. That is what you get from stopping and through stopping. So I'm going to share my tale of stopping woe with you, my shameful tale of woe of how I had to learn how to stop myself from speeding last summer. First off, let me say that I live in a very rural-ish community of around 4,000 people. I live in a vacation destination that swells up in the summertime and then, disappears in the wintertime. And it was summertime, and it was the end of summertime, and I was at a Billy Joel and Elton John concert. They were doing the music of Billy Joel and Elton John, and it was a very upbeat, lively concert. And I went by myself, and I met some girlfriends there. And when the concert was over, it was about 10:30 at night, and I was like, up, yes! I was happy. I was on that vibe of their great music, and I was feeling like just driving home in that vibe, and I also just wanted to get home. 10:30, is actually late for me. And it's very dark. There's no street lights where I live, and it was a weeknight, and I was on the road all by myself, and I just wanted to get home, and I wanted to put my jammies on, and I wanted to get my dogs, and I wanted to climb in bed. And it was my whole mission to get from the theater to my house. And I was almost home, and and as I said, it was dark, and I was the only one on the road, and I was just enjoying myself listening to more music on the radio, and I was thinking of getting home and doing those things. And I cross over the 30-mile-per-hour speed limit sign into my downtown area, which is just a bunch of old houses and a church and the town hall. And I see the blue lights. Oh no, I see the blue lights in the background, and I'm like, oh geez. So of course I stop, and I give the officer my license and registration, and he goes to check them. And of course, they have everything about you in their computers. They know everything you've done or not done. And he comes back, and he said, do you know how fast you were going? And I was like, no, officer, I don't know. I said, but I was really tired. I was just trying to get home. And he goes, well, you were going 56 and a 30, and that's reckless driving. And I was like, and then he said to me, I see that you haven't learned your lesson. And this is my shame part, because when I first moved to my little town 2 years previously, the very first 2 weeks I was living there, the first week I got stopped for doing 50 and a 30 in that downtown area. And the second week I got stopped for doing 50 and a 30 going in the opposite direction. 2 different cops. How many cops could there be in a town of 4,000? I got them both. And I used the same excuse both times. Oh, officer, I'm new. I don't know the speed limits. I'm sorry, I'll watch it. And I really did think I was watching it. But like I said, I was, I just wanted to get home. I wasn't paying attention. And this is what happens when you don't pay attention. And he chastised me, and he said, I hadn't learned anything, and he was right. And he said, do you know what will happen if I give you a ticket? And I was like, no. And he said, first off, you're going to have to pay $450. And I was like, yikes. I didn't really want to pay $450, but worse things could happen. And then he said, but that's not the worst of it. And I was like, uh-oh. And he said, if I give you this ticket, you're going to lose your license. And I was like, for one ticket? Because I have no other violations of any kind on my record. For one ticket, I'm going to lose my license? And he said, yes, because it's considered reckless driving. And I was in a downtown area, and I would lose my license and my insurance would go sky high. And then he got my attention. I was like, oh no, because I live in this rural-ish area, and I mean, there is no grocery store, there's no gas station, there's no convenience store, there's no coffee store, there is nothing. And it's very hilly, and I would have to bike myself to a grocery store, and I live where it's winter times for half the year. And I was like, oh my God, how will my life work without a license? I couldn't even envision it. And he actually, I don't actually scare that easily, but I was like, oh my God. I was like, oh my God, how am I going to manage? Because I live by myself, and it would have been a really big deal. So, he said, well, we don't really like to give residents a hard time, but this is your last warning. I was like, oh no. And he goes, the next time you get a ticket. And I was like, oh, thank you, officer. And I went home, and I was really rattled. And why was I rattled? Well, number one, I was just stunned that I could be in so much driving trouble. And number two, it really alarmed me that I had come so close to, having a real catastrophe on my hands, a real functionality catastrophe. And number three, I was worried I couldn't do it, or more accurately, that I didn't want to do it. I was worried because this was my habit, to kind of just bop around and get from point A to point B and turn up the radio as loud as I possibly can and just, drive and let that ego robot take over for me. The ego robot does fine. It doesn't get me in accidents, but apparently it can get me in trouble. And, so I had to really live with that anxiety. And I woke up in the morning, and I knew that I had to stop speeding. I knew that I had to make a decision to stop speeding, and I knew I had to make the intention to stop speeding, and so I did. But I like to do it. I don't like to do it in the negative. So I didn't say I intend to stop speeding, because that to me is saying it in the negative. So I said it in the positive, which is I intend to follow the speed limit. I will follow the speed limit. I am able to follow the speed limit. Those were my intentions. And it was a big decision. And number one, making a decision is an act of power. It's an act of power. Why? Because I'm consciously thinking about something. I'm intending to take power back from the ego robot and claim it as mine. It also was a very involved decision, because if I wasn't going to speed, I had to actually leave the house a little earlier, not just wait till the last minute to get myself from point A to point B. And what else did I have to do? I had to pay attention to where my foot was on the gas pedal, something I rarely did. I had to pay attention to the speed limit signs, something I rarely do. I usually just go with the flow. And they change frequently. It might say 40 here, and then in the next half a mile, it might say 35. And then in the next half a mile, it might say 40 again. And then in the next half a mile, it might say 45. So it just changes all the time. And I had to pay attention to that. And not just that, I had to pay attention to the people behind me. As it turns out, very few people care about following the speed limit. And when you do, there might be 15 cars behind you being annoyed. And I had to tune that out. We're going to follow the speed limit. I'm going to follow the speed limit. You can pass me when you can. This is how it's going to be. I had to tune that out. And, so it was a big act of consciousness. It was a big act of driving mindfulness. It was a big act of awareness. Maybe I couldn't blast that radio because I had to pay attention to what that darn car and I was doing. And that is how driving became an act of mindfulness, awareness, and power for me. Because even now, I have to get in the car and I have to remember, oh yeah, I will follow the speed limit. Even now, almost a year later, I have to remember where my foot is on that gas pedal, and I have a tendency to still gun it, and then I have to, take it off, see what I'm doing, look at the speedometer, look at the speed limit signs, look at where my foot is, pay attention. It's a constant act of paying attention, and that is power for me, power that I am accumulating, power that I am taking back from the ego robot. And, I hear a lot about, breaking free of the matrix and, we're all ascending and that kind of stuff. But I think that unless you're doing acts of awareness to make you a more conscious and powerful being, you're just bullshitting yourself. You know what I mean? You have to claim your power. You have to accumulate your power, and you have to experience yourself as a powerful being. And who knew that you could do this by simply driving from point A to point B? But this is my walk of shame that I have to share with you, but it all turned out for the best, and so far so good. I'm being a good Karen, not a bad one. So I teach stopping. Here's another sign. I can stop myself, and so can you. I teach stopping, and I do it in the Warrior's Way apprentice program. Check it out at my website, KarenBentley.com. It is a 10-day online webinar. Stopping is the featured skill. We also talk about manifesting a magnificent life for yourself, because that's what you're doing it for your own magnificent life. And check it out. And come back. I can't wait to be with you again. And bye for now. Mwah. Big love.